Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Parlay Show presented by Bet99. I'm Rob Conway in Toronto. This is our Thursday show. It's June. It's June. It's officially summer. Not officially. I don't even know when officially it's summer, but it's summer because it's beautiful out. It's about 30 degrees here. And joining me is my co-host. He is Albert Vartanian. AV, how are you, my man?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing very, very well. Like I said, it's beautiful. I got some golf going on tomorrow, so I'm really looking forward to that. We got our other co-host. He's in Ottawa. And he's never in Ottawa, but he's in Ottawa for the next few hours, and then he's off to Moncton. It is our former NHLer, Matthew Barnaby. Barney, how are you doing?
I'm just glad that we don't do a show on Friday or Saturday because I'd be hearing about this 4-iron that you hit and how well you played. And so I'm happy. It's going to be Tuesday. Hopefully you forget about it. But yes, off to Moncton in a few hours and excited to get down there. It's always a great time. Hockey tournament, a little golf, and seeing lots of alumni. Should be fun.
So I just want to say something. So you've been away doing a bunch of stuff for a long time, but you're also on vacation in Europe for how long was it? 10 days, 14 days?
16 days, yeah.
16 days. You just got back earlier this week. And the last 2 days you've texted me. I think we have one of the pictures you sent me. That's the picture I get. It's you at Camelot with a beer. Like, I understand you're retired, Barney, but I would like to know if you do anything but not have the best time ever.
I try to live a good life. My
I think so.
I do a good job of it. I've never been accused of not having fun.
No,
I've never been accused of doing that. My wife brought up a good point. I didn't know this till last week. She goes, you know what? At some point, we all just die. So you know what? I'm gonna have fun. And now I am a new member of Camelot. So
I know. All right. Round of applause. New member of Camelot. They don't know you very well there yet, and they will. And I'm sure this is a probationary membership.
Pierre Dorian's a member there, so we're going to have some good times.
Awesome. That's great. And we did golf with Pierre at the Sens tournament. He is a great guy and a great golfer. He better be giving you a couple strokes if you guys are playing.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. Hopefully still around here in a few weeks after the sale is all done, and hopefully he gets a chance to keep what he's building.
Yeah, because he's doing a great job there. Speaking of the general managers in the NHL, big announcement today from a couple of teams. One, the introduction of Brad Treliving in Toronto, and then not technically a GM anymore, president of hockey operation Kyle Dubas heading to Pittsburgh. Barney, I just want to start off by saying the one thing that frustrates me the most about sports in general. The NHL is a sports league that does it a lot, but everyone does. Is you have a guy who was a GM for 9 years at a place who did a really good job, but never came anywhere near to achieving the actual goal they want to. Another guy who was a GM for 5 years, part of an organization for 8, the same thing. And yet both of these guys were unemployed for days. Now, I said if Kyle Dubas got fired, he would and should get a job. And I'm not saying that he did a bad job or anything. And Brad Treliving, much the same. Those are successful teams that have been to the playoffs. But what is it, Barney, that they continue to? It's not even a year off or an opportunity to try other things. Boom, right away, 2 guys who did not succeed at their last positions are immediately hired in the NHL.
Pretty simple fear from the higher ups. If you're a president of hockey operations, you're Brendan Shanahan. You went with Kyle Dubas. You gave him your chance. You haven't had success. You have 4 great players when you look at the core 4 in Toronto, and expectations are high. Now it's not about making the playoffs anymore. It's about not winning one round. It's about winning a Stanley Cup. You look at Vegas and Florida. One of those 2 teams is going to win a Stanley Cup before the Toronto Maple Leafs. And Pittsburgh is the same way. I mean, expectations are high, but it's fear in hiring someone new that hasn't been in that role before. And that's all it comes down to me, is these guys have been in the position. They know how to run teams, and where they haven't had the epitome of success, they know the league, they know the players, they know the GMs, they know how it works. So I think when you look at a guy like Treliving, and it frustrates me too for new guys trying to get in, and that's coaches, that's GMs, that's all of the above. But, when you look at Treliving, I think it's really their strong point in Calgary has always been the back end. And he's really done a great job of building that back end and making them pretty sound defensive team. Now that goes with the coaching and everything there within, but that's to me why he was probably brought in, and the experience that he's had. He's a good GM. He's a terrific guy.
Yeah.
But expectations are now set very, very high. And I would be very surprised, very, very surprised if one of the core four is not gone and they shore up that defense.
Yeah, and listen, that's what Shanahan said after Dubas was gone. He goes, someone whose experience is the attractive option, like Barney was saying. And you know, Barney, better than both of us here, how difficult it is to win a Stanley Cup.
Right.
And that's what Treliving was saying today at his press conference. I thought he said all the right things. He spoke really well. But he goes, listen, there's essentially an 8 seed in the final that were a Pittsburgh Penguins win away from not being in the playoffs. Like, that's how difficult it is to get there. And so I just think Treliving does come with a lot of experience. Like Barney said, on the back end, he had Brody and Giordano for 7 years. I think he drafted Adam Fox, Dougie Hamilton, and he was kind of unfortunate in those situations too, because those players, you know, Goudreau, Kachuk, Adam Fox, Dougie Hamilton, they didn't want to extend, but that's not because of Treliving, right? That's because of the market in Calgary. Here in Toronto, I think he might have a lot more success.
And it's not, again, it's not to take away from the success that these two guys have had. And like I said, both of those guys, that was not going to be their last gigs in the NHL. I just find it like in sports, in all these leagues, there's 30 plus gigs for each level. And like Barney, like you said, it's just so hard to draw in. Now, look, Brendan Shanahan did it with Kyle Dubas by grabbing a guy out of nowhere. And so it's not to say that is never done, but it was somewhat surprising to me how quickly guys that were technically unsuccessful what they did. Now, there's so many more things to being a general manager than just winning a Stanley Cup. But that is your mandate, right? That is your mandate from the fans, from management, from ownership, from the players. Everything is to create a Stanley Cup winning team. And now these guys did it, and they were unemployed again for a very short period of time.
Yeah, there's definitely a feel, right?
I think the main thing is, like, when we look at the start of the year and we look at odds, we're in the gambling business.
Yeah. When
you look at a team like Ottawa or Buffalo or Columbus, Philadelphia at the start of this year, you're like, okay, they aren't playoff teams. So you judge their GM because they aren't playoff teams. They haven't built a roster, or maybe they're in a transition, whatever it may be, or they aren't ready for that next step. But you look at the Calgary Flames at the start of the year, you're like, okay, Stanley Cup contender. That's Brad Treliving that put that team together. He did the best he could. I think we all can agree when Matthew Tkachuk asked for a trade and wants to move on, you get the best return possible. No one would have said Huberdeau, who had like 115, 118 points last year. Mackenzie Weegar coming back wasn't a great return. Now, they didn't have the success. That lays on the coach, and that's why Sutter was fired, because a little too old school probably for these guys, didn't work out. But you look at the roster that was put forward by that team or for that team and that coach, that's Treliving. You look at Dubas in Toronto, you look at the team that he put, you look at his trade deadline, you're like, okay, this is a team that can compete for a Stanley Cup. Now, he still has to take some onus that they didn't get the job done. But to me, you look and expectations are that they are going to compete for a Stanley Cup. So we look at those numbers, we look at where we project them. They did a great job in assembling those teams. It just didn't work out because, like he said, it's very hard to win. I played 15 years, never came close, never got a sniff. And only one time did I truly feel that I had a chance, and that was in Colorado.
Yeah. Now, with regards to Kyle Dubas and what he might have to do in Pittsburgh, obviously you have a core there that's not like the core four in Toronto. It's a much older one. And, you know, part of why he didn't want to stay in Toronto is he didn't have a lot of control. But do you think this, you know, the ownership, Fenway ownership, whatever, do you think their mandate's going to be, look, you got to come in and figure out a way to win now, and then you can get an opportunity to put your hands on it and redo in a couple of years? Or is this something that maybe he's going to say, no, we need to start rebuilding now? These three players, Malkin, Crosby, Letang, it's over for them.
Yeah, a couple things. Kyle saying it's Toronto or come on, everyone lies. Don't listen to people are on Twitter like, oh my God, what's he saying? It was Toronto. Come on. We knew he was going to get another job. We knew it was going to be somewhere else. It's not a GM, it's president. Okay, let's move on from that. We know why he left. Him and Shanahan butted heads. They weren't sitting together, and it was pretty easy to see they weren't sitting together during games anymore. There's your first clear sign. So is the mandate to win now? It has to be. It has to be. You have Letang, Malkin, and Crosby. There's your core three, like the core four in Toronto. But these guys are at the end of their careers, not at their mid and at their peak. So, yes, the mandate will be win now, find us a goaltender, and let's go have a chance for the next 2 or 3 years. And then we assess where we're at that, and then we transform and we go into a rebuild.
Yeah, there's a lot to do in Pittsburgh, and people are coming out saying, Crosby and Malkin, these guys are washed. They're not washed. Malkin and Crosby played all 82 games last season. How many players can you say that did that at that age and playing at that level for so long? Dubas going into Pittsburgh, I think one of the things for him, which he wanted in Toronto, was more money and more power. And he got both of those things in Pittsburgh. So you can't get on the guy for going back on what he said.
He got a better title, right? He's got Shanahan's
That's a
title.
great gig. The president of hockey operations for Pittsburgh Penguins, the second
They
time
don't
ever.
get fired.
Yeah. You do the firing.
That's right.
No,
that's a great point.
It's awesome. It's awesome. That's what I want.
You played in Pittsburgh. You think they're happy with that? That let's be honest. Kyle Dubas goes from an analytical, aspect. Do you think the fan base there will be happy to have that, or are they an old school type of fan base?
No, I think they'll be happy. I think the transition. I think they were really bitter with Brian Burke and Ron Hextall. So I think a new blood coming in, they'll be very, very happy. It's a great fan base, great place to play, and look forward to seeing who he brings in as GM. That's going to be the next thing. Expect Jason Spezza as an assistant general manager.
AGM for sure. Yeah.
AGM for sure.
I think
100%.
definitely there's an opportunity. All right, let's take a quick break here and we'll get back. We got the Stanley Cup final coming up on Saturday. We also have game 1 of the NBA final coming up tonight. We got some golf, some Jays, but let's take a quick break here on the Parlay Show and we'll be back after this.